Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're hanging out with the West Coast, East Coast comic book guys, comic book from coast to coast. I'm West Coast Joe. I'm hanging out with my buddy, East Coast Alex, Alexander Turbin. How's it going today, Alex?
It's going very good. That last comparison that we had between two artists, I know a lot of people didn't want to vote because they like both of them, but we had probably hopefully the votes are just going to get more and more because we had 33 votes, which is the most that we've had, and I think every week, as long as we have compelling artists, maybe this week's going to be a little bit weird. But as long as we have compelling artists, I think people are going to want to vote and cast their, who they like better.
It's funny because it's like you said, we had 33 votes, which is cool. That is, I think, the most we've had. But I want to say it's probably 30 votes for Mike
Yeah.
Magnolia and 3 votes for Jay Lee. You know?
No, it's Magnola did win, but Jay Lee, it was probably a 70-30 split.
Dude, I thought it was like
I'm
30
thinking.
to like 3 or something like that. Like
Yeah.
30% to like
No,
3%
no,
or
yeah,
something like.
percentage wise, I mean, yes, it seems like a lot. That's why we need more votes because we really need to see, the more votes, the more concise this whole thing can be. Like,
Oh, for sure, for
when they do polls, is if you poll three people and two, it doesn't do any good. But if you have, a whole bunch of votes, then you know more about what's going on.
but people are, they love Mike Magnolia's work. He's such a
Yeah.
popular guy. It's not hard to see that he would win that one.
Well, he's also I think he has the age, like he didn't do stuff in the 70s, but he was like, early 80s and stuff like that, so he has a little bit of, time on his side, and, I think when you like I said before, I think when you're younger, things might be a little bit more impactful on you than if you're older, so if you're, in your, 20s or whatever, and you come across Jay Lee or, compared to if you being like 9, 10, or 11 and you see Mike Mignola or something like that, then I think it leaves a little bit of a bigger impact on you.
Yeah, I think that's probably true for sure. I mean, they're very similar, yet they're very
Yeah,
different guys. They have very similar styles, yet they have a lot of unique qualities that set each of them apart from one another.
yeah, yeah,
Ultimately, I think people just embrace, the work of Mike more than they do I mean, like the body of work of Jay Lee. Like, I mean, people just love Hellboy. I mean, that's a
yeah,
huge
yeah.
thing. Mike
What's
Magnolia.
up
I
your
mean,
name?
like,
One
I'm
second. What's
sorry.
up your name? Your name said hello, brother.
Your name. All right. What's going on, dude? Um,
We're
it's nice
talking
to have
comic
people on
books.
board. Yeah. Thanks for coming by. We appreciate it. Um, but yeah, they're both great artists, and I personally I think I lean towards the Jay Lee thing just because his stuff is it just has I want to say maybe it's a more rounded off quality, or maybe it has a slightly higher level of detail information that he aspires to, where Mike
Yeah, yeah,
Mignolia has
yeah. I,
really
I think he does.
broken his stuff down to a slightly more simplistic vibe, when it comes to how he puts things together so elementally with shapes.
Yeah, yeah. Your name, we're from. I'm on the East Coast, and Joe's on the West Coast. That's why we're the East Coast, West Coast guys.
Yeah.
So I asked you last week, well, if you got the first Jay Lee, which I think was Namor. Do you remember the first time you saw Mike
Yeah,
Mignola's
I told you
art?
that a while back. It was in the Quorum books. Remember I showed you those? It's part of
I don't
the
remember.
Four Who Are One, the Eternal Champion saga by Michael Moorcock. It's
Oh,
he's a Elric type character. I showed them when we did the
yeah.
Elric stuff, when we did the P. Craig
I
Russell
I don't
Elric stuff.
remember. I don't remember the Mike Mignola stuff.
Yeah, I put them
Huh,
up. They're
huh.
they're
Yeah,
really quite striking. And but
yeah,
his
yeah,
art is already there. It's really already fully formed. Like, it's probably even a little
yeah,
bit more detailed at that point than what he does now. His stuff is
yeah,
way
yeah,
more got a way more primordial vibe to his stuff these
yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah.
Especially if
My
he really is like freestyling it. You can get some really weird stuff with him these days.
Yeah, yeah. No, the first time I believe the first time I ever saw Mignola was the cover Alpha Flight 20, I can't remember, 24, 25, the Wolverine fighting
Sure,
Lady
I remember that.
Deathstrike. Yeah, 'cause I believe, and like I've been asked a few times if I have any comic books that I bought just for the cover, and I think that might be the only real example of that, of me buying stuff for the
Yeah,
cover.
I knew he was a special artist right when I saw him, and he was really good right off the back. Now those quorums I'm talking about are fantastic, and I drew those all the time
Yeah,
as a kid, and I absolutely loved it. And first struggled because he did like 4 issues or 5 issues. I want to say it was probably 5, and they are fantastic. And I mean Michael Moorcock stuff like we talked about, like Robert E. Howard, his stuff is really fantastic, and people do these wonderful. They get really like it inspires people's imagination. So you get really intricate, beautiful work when people interpret his ideas. And Mike Mignola was
yeah,
nothing less.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's like I remember one of the characters has armor made of blue seashells. And when you're a kid, you're reading the books, you're like, wow, what would armor look like if it was made out of blue invulnerable like seashell, like clamshells or whatever? And then he draws it and it's
right,
bad, ass, you know what I mean? It's super cool. And
yeah,
I remember
yeah,
like they struggled to find someone. Like first they tried to replace him with someone similar, and they just couldn't get close, and everybody hated it. And then they tried to find someone to emulate him, and then they couldn't really do it. And then I remember just like, because I was loving what he did so much, and then you get bummed when someone comes on that can't really
yeah,
get to that same
yeah,
level again. And
yeah, definitely.
you instantly become aware of like, oh, this guy's got like a little bag of magic more than most people. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like you
yeah,
kind of get
yeah,
it right out
yeah.
the back.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying. It's weird too, because that Michael Moorcock stuff is it. Would you say that's sword and sorcery?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's the best sword and sorcery there is. I
It
don't think there's even like the only one that ever comes close is
you don't think it's
Robert E. Howard.
you don't think it's you don't think
Well,
it's
fantasy and
fantasy?
sword and sorcery are the same thing.
Well, there's I think there's a thin line. There's definitely a thin line. But it's you look at that Michael Moorcock stuff, especially in the comic books, it's drawn so differently. All of the artists that do it draw it so differently than the Savage Sword of Conan or any of that stuff.
Well, it's
It's
a
kind of
more
weird.
civilized world. It's the European world. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like
yeah,
Savage Sword of
yeah,
Conan is like Turkey and Romania and Russia and places like that, like you feel like.
yeah,
And then it's a more dark ages time. It's far
yeah,
the dark ages, it's very reminiscent of that. you
yeah,
you don't
yeah,
see you don't see like ornithopter vehicles or robots that are wind up power or that kind of thing. You know what I mean? You don't see sorcery that could create armies of dragons and demons and stuff like that in
right,
Conan. You
right,
know what I
right,
mean?
right.
Like
Yeah, right.
Elric is much more, the Michael Moorcock stuff is way more dark, god magic, like the gods playing chess with mortal beings, on an
Yeah,
epic playing field. It's like
yeah,
chaos and law, as the structure of the universe, and where do men come into play, and the ideas of these big things that make up, our universal ideas. And it's sword and sorcery on the most epic scale, but it has
right.
a highly European vibe to it. You know what I mean? Like it's much
Yeah,
more,
yeah.
it's like Game of Thrones or something like that, as far as like the type of worlds they visit or the way the worlds might feel. But it has a higher magical value. Like there's way more magic is like a way more higher. Like Witcher rips off everything about Elric, but not as good.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So when you're looking at
It's
Witcher, what you're really looking at is a very broke down version of the Michael Moorcock stuff.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
that
yeah,
guy grew up reading Michael Moorcock and just wished he invented
yeah,
Elric, and
yeah,
just ripped
yeah.
it off.
It just it feels like the Moorcock stuff, they make it look prettier than the Conan stuff,
Yeah, it's like
which
I said, it's a more
that's cool.
civilized
That's
realm
cool.
or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely more civilized. I think that's the perfect way of saying it. But let's get into the this week's battle between artists. I hate to put it that way because it's a fun battle. And but then I think next week we should maybe go back to the winners and put some of the winners together.
Sure, man.
We'll
Sounds
have to
good to me.
decide. Yeah, we'll have to decide who should go to who. Like um, Keith and Mignola, that would be, or Dale Keown and Silvestri. That's going to be a great battles coming up. Um, but this week we're doing. You're looking at Wendy Pini, who mostly known for, or do you think she's primarily known or only known for ElfQuest?
Yeah, I think that's the only thing she's ever done.
Yeah, yeah. And so you're looking at Wendy Penny, who she's quite a bit older and has more history and stuff than Chester Brown, who does Yummy Fur. And this will be a unusual because I feel like a lot of people that have subscribed to my channel are into the indie comic. I might be wrong, but this will be a strong test to see who really kind of subscribes to the channel and stuff, and what kind of stuff they're into. So these two are definitely more cartoony cartoonists than what we have looked at before. So ahead with your
Yeah, I
Wendy
think
Penny.
like I don't really Chester Brown is not a guy I've ever really looked at. And people who don't fetishize the
Yeah,
form, probably fall off my radar or whatever. But Wendy Pini has been, I mean, she's hugely creative influence in my entire life. I mean, you could look at her work and see the Disney-esque value that she brings to the faces, her ability to create that level of emotional content. These are
yeah, yeah,
beautiful, hand done, back in the
yeah.
day of
What?
real art when there was no computers to help you and there was no, you know, drop stuff to keep you on scale or anything, and she did all these beautiful, beautiful hand done paintings for her
Yeah.
covers. And they're
Yeah.
just extraordinary.
1 second. What do you have? What do you have there? What? Because ElfQuest has so many iterations and so many
This is the
different
original
publishers.
run. This is the original run of ElfQuest, and I just grabbed a handful. I have all of them, obviously, and this is just a handful of some of her most beautiful, covers, in my personal opinion. And I mean, she's a prolific artist who, and you could just tell we're like-minded people. You like the same things. I could I always felt like the elves from ElfQuest were a little influenced by Weehawk from Wizards.
Yeah, yeah. When
Do
did
you know?
yeah,
Do you know
yeah.
what I'm talking about?
I need to rewatch Wizards.
I watch that stuff about once a year.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you know where you can stream it? Because I've been looking for it.
Oh, I own it on DVD. I don't
Yeah,
have it
yeah,
on like Blu-ray or whatever,
yeah, yeah.
But
I
yeah,
might have to
because
get it because I don't think I can stream it.
I go out and buy I have say like Lupin, the first Miyazaki film,
Yeah,
uh, Heavy Metal, the original 1980 release, freaking, Rock and Roll, Fire and Ice. I have all the great underground comic book, animated films. I have them all
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much, on Blu-ray or whatever, just so I don't have to trip on finding them somewhere, or, see if I can't, because sometimes I just want to watch those things. Wizards, I have all those, man. Freaking, I have all those. The original Lord of the Rings from Ralph Bakshi,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I have those. I
But
believe
just
I
off
have
the
those.
back, I mean, you could see Wendy
Oh, it's black
Peeney's
and white.
incredible, her incredible ability to display expression and stuff just say in these panels right here, the level of emotion that's on display in these characters' faces, it's just it's extraordinary stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
What
you know,
issue did you say that is?
this is towards the very end of the run right here. This
Yeah.
is number 18. And this is essentially the epic conclusion of the story. And it was a fantastic. I mean, dude, this is fantasy and sword and sorcery. It's everything. It was epic.
Yeah.
Warfare and family and love, and she just tells. I mean, her art is just it's beyond. Most people will never ever be like Jim Lee is probably not even this good, in my opinion. She has Blueberry Bee. Hey, what's up, dude? Just want to say hi. Sonia Leonardo, thanks for coming by. Thanks for everybody who's dropping by and saying hi. In my
Yeah.
opinion, her
Yeah.
art is it's at a much higher level than most people are really capable of getting to. Uh, all this is done by hand. She never had no cheats. She turned these things out like clockwork for years, 3 of them every year, all written by her, all drawn by her, all inked by her, no assistants, no cheats, and I mean, they're just stunning pieces of work. Everything about them, the design, the characters, the backgrounds,
Right.
uh,
Right.
the the level of detail. I mean, they're just I cannot speak enough about how much this stuff like influenced me. Like when I was a kid and I would read these, I wanted to live in this book. It wasn't like, oh, this is a good comic or a good story. It was like I ached to be part of like Wendy Pini's
Right. Right.
family and the characters, because I just loved them so much and identified with every one of them. So all of it was so important to me. But even on the back, like, you could just tell like she's understood and thought about things the same way. And this was like one of the things that really brought that home to me. And this is a very rarely seen jewel that probably most people have never seen and very few people even know about, right? And this is Law and Chaos by Wendy Pini. And when Wendy Pini was an artist in art school, she did her entire dissertation on the fact that she wanted to make a independent animated film of the Elric universe.
Right.
And she was never able to achieve this goal. But this book is filled with the painted work of her ambitions, to create Elric as an animated character.
Right.
And I mean, you just know, like, I was such a huge fan of Elric, and I was such a huge fan of Michael Moorcock. And then her work spoke to me so deeply. And then when I found out that she was as much a fan of Elric as I was, it really like sang to my heart, like his trueness. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, here's a person who isn't just like, it's like, no wonder I love her work so much. Elric on the Ruby Throne. Like she's just like me. You know what I mean? She loves the same kind of things I love. She, wants to bring the same kind of like worlds and the same kind of like beautiful art as I want to be able to do. And when you're a kid, you look at someone like that and you just think, I want to do that. I want to be like that. I want to be able to, create worlds, with my hands that other people will can come and want to live in, and be part of or whatever. And I mean, these are they're absolutely gorgeous, dude. She's just mind blowing. And
So her art though specifically, she's got a different style. She's got quite a different style than maybe it's I don't even think it's because I mean it's not bad, but when you look at it's no, I'm saying this. It's not bad, but when you look at a female's art, you can usually tell that they're a woman. Would you
oh yeah,
agree?
it's got a softness and a feminineness to it, definitely.
Right,
The
right.
faces
And
are all
that's
very
certainly
beautiful.
it's not bad. That's not bad. That's not a criticism at all. But it certainly is there
No,
when you
I mean you're
compare them to
100%
other
right.
artists.
It's very
Yeah,
romantic. I mean, I love it. It's
yeah,
very beautiful. I mean, some like these are like this is a background where she was creating, and her idea was that you could see that this is a cutout because she was going to have like real light coming from the windows was her goal or whatever.
yeah,
This is her kind
yeah,
of like trying to light the window. But no, like speaking about like what you're talking about, and that's definitely true. And I mentioned this on another one of our streams before, but man, look at that gorgeous table. Was that she showed this stuff to Michael Moorcock, and
yeah.
he said immediately that she got it all wrong. He was like, "Oh, you over romanticize everything." He's
You-
like, "This looks like a Disney film," and he
Yeah,
was like, "And
yeah.
you missed the point of Elric completely." Like he said the exact same thing. That was
Right,
it's far too gentle and it's far too romanticized. It looks much more like Sleeping Beauty from from
right.
Disney or something like that, which is
Yeah,
clearly what she's trying to go for. Because I mean, dude, but you have to just think she did all of this work herself, and look at these backgrounds and stuff, man. I mean, like she was so ambitious trying to create this this world, or even if it was just like going to be a 15-minute film, there's like montages of the story cut together or something, like it's so ambitious, like
right.
Elric and them sleeping and then lightning flashing through the window or whatever right there, like man, dude. And
Yeah,
I just think
yeah,
it's gorgeous. I just think it's gorgeous. And then you have to love the idea of battling the Great War, like trying to just be like, I want to do this so bad, like no one's making an Elric movie, I'm going to make one, and it's not just going to be a movie, it's going to be this gorgeous Disney level thing she's imagining to
yeah,
herself. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, that's what she's aspiring to do. And you have to just
Right.
like, you have to get behind anybody with that kind of level of belief in themselves and that imagination. That's just a young person on fire or whatever. And they think that they could make an entire movie into herself. But you know, the sad thing is like nowadays she probably could. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
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 like with today's technology, she probably could have really made this. You know, if she was a student nowadays. You know, with that kind of level of ability.
yeah, yeah. I think aren't they kickstarting a new ElfQuest?
I don't know, but I wouldn't surprise me. I mean,
Yeah,
she also gets a lot of money too, because I think like ElfQuest is one of those things that's been like optioned for Hollywood for the last 50 years, and every year
yeah,
the film is optioned. She gets like a whatever, 50, 60, 80 grand, whatever to
yeah,
keep for whoever's trying to keep the license, you know what I mean? Because they have to pay a lot of
yeah,
money to hold the
yeah,
license for creating it. And it's been in creation limbo since the 80s, because like I can recall
yeah,
Ed
yeah,
Piskor working with the American guy,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he was talking about
Harvey.
yeah, and he was talking about when they finally made the movie. He was like, "Oh, it was cool, and I got a little bit of change." He goes, "But it was nothing nearly as good as when it was sitting for option all those years, because all those years was up for option." He's like, "I was just getting paid, but once the thing got made, the option goes out, and you just get that little lump of sum, and then you're done."
Have you ever seen that movie, American Splendor?
I watched bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a
Just
weird
about
movie.
a sad, depressed
So
guy.
so I
But real
so
quick,
I want to
you know,
talk about Wendy. I want to talk about Wendy Penny's art though. Like it's so different. It's so
yeah, like
specific.
and
Like
real fast, like
you look at a lot of comic books. It doesn't look like any other comic book artist out there ever.
no, she's much more influenced by animation and stuff. But this is a good example of like the Elric book that you showed, that Stormbringer book,
Yeah,
that you had
yeah,
from Pete Craig Russell. Now, one of the
yeah.
I don't know if you've read it or if you even looked at it or how well you're familiar with what's taking place in that book. I don't know if you've ever read the story or have you? Did you read it at all?
The the one that I looked
Yes.
over with you. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I read it. I was a
Okay.
little bit confused
You
about it.
know that black guy, the black character who's like a god who rides that chariot or whatever.
I don't remember that part. Oh
Okay.
yeah, wait. I think I do. I think I do.
Yeah, yeah. He's a black. He's
It's
all
toward the is it toward the end where they have
yes,
the battle?
yes. And that guy, like
Yeah.
this is that character right here.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That is her interpretation of that character, and you can see
Yeah.
like she misses, and she doesn't even it like goes right over her head. Is that it's supposed to be a black man? You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
supposed to be a black man. And
Right.
she draws
Right.
a white person just with black skin because it just describes him as a black skinned being,
Right.
right? It
Right.
doesn't say African or anything like that, in the book. It describes him as a man with like onyx skin or whatever, that's perfect. And so she just draws this super white Aryan elf, but gives him black skin, and it's like,
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean that's maybe she just didn't have the skills to do it.
I think it just
Yeah.
went over her head. To be perfectly
Maybe.
honest, I think she just
Maybe.
didn't grasp that it's supposed to be an ethnic character.
Maybe. Drawing ethnic people is incredibly difficult.
It is. But I just thought it would be fun to show that because it's such a rare gem and nobody has
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm such a
Definitely.
huge fan of Elric and just a huge fan of her. And I've always gone out of my way to, get my hands on everything that she's done that's that is beautiful and important to me.
And it's interesting. It's interesting when you're looking at that because one of the things about her ElfQuest is all of her proportion of her people, because obviously they're elves. Like the heads are a little bit bigger, and the proportions are just a little bit exaggerated in more of a cartoony look, like you were talking about. But it's not that way in that piece that you just showed. The Elric stuff
Oh no, yeah,
is
because
a
see, like
lot less.
ElfQuest elves are like not exactly traditional. Like traditionally the elves are very tall and very lithe or whatever, and the ElfQuest elves they're in the story they're half wolf or whatever. It's like their ancestor had to breed with a wolf, and it made the half elf, half wolf creatures, which are the wolf riders, which are a off branch of the high elves or whatever, which are the tall, thin elves, which are featured in the story too. They come to a group of tall thin elves that are their ancient ancestors with pure blood, but the wolf riders are shrunk and diminished because they had to wild creatures in order to survive.
Right, right,
So
right.
they have a more cartoony, they have a more childish stature, you know what I mean? Which is probably one of the things that I adored about it so much as a kid
Yeah,
growing up is,
yeah.
you know,
What book is that you're looking at? That's a
this
shiny interiors.
this is what I this is like what I always think of when I tell you like, oh, you have to get all your books like when you get, you know, issues of Queller together, when you get 10 issues of Siren together, you have to
Right,
stop and color all of them and put out a color compendium. And that's what this is. She would, every time she finished a year, which would be 4 issues, and she'd do 1 issue every 3 months.
right.
And at the end of that year, she would take those 4 issues and she would paint color them and then release them
Yeah,
as a compendium.
yeah. And so is that it's a graphic novel of who printed it, who published it and
She
stuff.
printed it. It's Warp Graphics.
It's Warp Graphics.
Yeah.
The problem is it's expensive.
She was selling these
It's
in Walden
expensive and you have
Books.
to sell more copies. Yeah,
Well, she,
yeah,
she was way past that stuff at this point. She was like an indie creator, but like, I mean, she's on the diamond list and you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
or
yeah.
diamond distribution or whatever, like, I mean, she's selling 10,000, 15,000 copies, 30,000 copies every single time she goes out.
Right, right.
So she's not, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? She's not worried about how much it costs to print these things, because she knows she's
yeah.
going to make all the money back.
Well, you don't always know that when after you're when you're printing it because you have to put the money up front to get the copies or whatever.
Well, all I know is that
I'm
all
looking
these
at
were really successful. And at this point,
yeah,
this in her run, she was making a lot of money off all this stuff.
yeah. I'm looking at the Epic. I think it's Epic. Yeah, the Marvel Epic books. Did you get all of the Marvel Epic Wendy Pennies?
No, dude, like
Elfquest?
I didn't even like mess with any of the Marvel stuff because that's like Marvel. Like I already had it all. Like I was already down with all of it. Like it was
Yeah,
done by the
yeah,
time Marvel came on board. Like they tried to get Marvel to do the book and they laughed at them. Pini went out
yeah,
and did it
yeah.
herself, became a huge success. And then Marvel came running to her doorstep and was like, "Let us, publish it now." You
Right,
know what I
right.
mean?
But then they did go to Marvel, and so none of this Marvel stuff is new stuff. It's all reprints of
No, yeah, it's just
that.
the same book reprinted. That's all it is in a smaller comic book form.
Yeah, yeah. And the printing is really not that great. It's
Yeah, I
it's
was gonna
uh
say it's a
it's
lesser
very
format. Her printing is a
yeah,
million times better. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's blurry in a lot of
yeah,
places and
yeah. The Marvel
um
stuff is whack. It was whack,
yeah,
dude. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And it's like, and if you're gonna get it in color, then it needs to look like this. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
Otherwise, the real way to see it is in, its true black and white value because this stuff is just freaking gorgeous.
Yeah,
Seeing it
yeah,
in its black and white like this is really the best way. Unless you're looking at her colored version, that she does. This is
yeah,
the best way to look at it
yeah, yeah,
because she gives you that true her ability to create facial expression and emotion in her characters is unprecedented, and it creates a level of connection that you rarely get in a comic book. And she has a way of creating detail that's so beautiful and so fluid and so perfect that you become utterly involved in the story and the characters. If you give yourself to it, ElfQuest will sweep you away.
yeah.
Like nothing, very rarely, almost nothing is, except for real books like Lord of the Rings and like The Dark Tower has come close to what ElfQuest did for me.
I will have to reread a bunch of these because I don't
If you
really
want me to
remember the
send you the
story
whole
all that
run,
much.
I'll send it to you and let you read it, and you just mail it
No,
back
no,
to me when
I'll
you're done.
probably go back and get the graphic novel. I'm sure there's graphic novel reprints that are really good that I'll
Well, you
probably
let me
get.
know, man. Well, let's
Yeah.
take a look at some Chester Brown.
Okay. So you don't have any kind of
I don't.
knowledge of Yummy Fur.
No.
We have friends, acquaintances, other comic book creators that are specifically this kind of stuff. When you talk about indie comics, really, there's different types of indie comics. You have those underground R. Crumb kind of stuff, you know, drug paraphernalia kind of books. But then you have this autobiographical, Yummy Fur kind of thing, and it's really good. I mean, it's not. It's like a lot of the stuff that you like and or you prioritize or whatever is science fiction, fantasy, and stuff like that. And I totally 100% understand that. I'm a lot that way as well. But then when you give something like Yummy for a chance, I don't think I can look at this one because there's some nudity and stuff. But like I said, so much of his work is autobiographical, and um, it's not about um, a big fight scene or any kind of fight scene or anything like that. It's about
Well, yeah.
quiet
Yeah, is
things.
he the Art School Confidential guy? Is that him or is that Dan Klaus?
That's Dan Klaus. Yep.
Oh, okay, I get those two
Yep.
guys mixed up. Their work
Yeah,
is
yeah.
pretty
There's a
similar.
lot of these guys that are semi autobiographical, whatever,
Autobiographical.
autobiographical, um, and so like they don't go the traditional route of anything. They choose their own way of doing comic books. And if you look at any of the stuff that like in the Paul Courtjohn, he is very much in this kind of veins kind of stuff where he just does his own thing, and you either like it or you don't, but it has history, and
Oh
this
yeah,
is the
Paul's
kind
a
of stuff.
wonderful creator too, man. He does
Yeah,
really great
yeah,
stuff. Of all
yeah,
of our
yeah,
guys
he's
that do
great.
that kind of stuff, he's like probably one of the stronger ones or whatever. Because we have quite a few guys
Yeah,
that
yeah.
do that kind of thing where they just kind of trying to interpret moments of life and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where it's not superheroes or fantasy or science fiction or anything like that. Like this is just Yummy Fur is like I said, it's autobiographical. And he did start out with Ed the Happy Clown, which is probably more famous than the Yummy Fur stuff. And that's the one where Ronald Reagan or what comes it's a lot of weird stuff. Ronald Reagan is on Ed the Happy Clown's penis, and he's from another dimension. And Ed starts pooping from another dimension because they're like sending crap from it into his. I don't know. It's a lot of weird, but hilariously funny stuff. So
Yeah, well,
when
I
you
mean, he's more well known than I am. So like, what I mean, he's a famous guy
so
that people love. So someone
right,
out there
right.
is liking it.
Right. But when you're looking at his stuff, um, like you're looking at expressions, you're looking at a non-romanticized way of looking at people. Like if you stop and you look at you go to the mall and you look at people are not how we draw them. You know, like we draw it's you often say it's the romanticized way of looking at the human
Well, what you're
form and
talking
stuff
about
like
is
that.
character.
These
He does
people
character, which is like you're
he,
trying to capture the
he
essence of feeling and moment and that kind
right,
of thing.
right. Right, catches the essence, and it's not like I said, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. It's people slouch. People have long necks. People have long noses. People have big ears. So he catches the realism in his life and in his world compared to most of the other artists that we've looked at. That it's a fantastical
It's
world.
an
It's
interpretive
a
idea because like
right,
it's not
right.
realism at all. Like what I mean, like you're saying, it's a cartoon,
Right,
but
right,
he
right,
he
right, right.
pushes everything into a zone where you're going like, oh, I see the essence of what this is, kind of
Exactly,
thing.
exactly, exactly,
So
exactly.
like I get it. That a lot of people, are, I mean, it's a powerful way to tell a story, or certainly it can be. I mean, like R. Crumb was real famous for that kind of thing. When I was growing up, his work was kind of all around you. Like
Yeah,
he was like he designed the Keep on Trucking guy. You know what I mean? And that was everywhere when I was a little kid. It was on people's like it was like one of those iron-on things that would just be on everybody's jeans, and it was like on the back of everybody's jackets, and it was on folders at school and on
right,
buttons that people wore, and but I never looked at that and was like, whoa, that's great art. Like I
right,
understood it to be like a look of the times, because his art is very reminiscent of like Maurice Sendak or things like that, or Richard Scarry, if you know who that is. Do you know who Richard
right, right.
Scarry is?
No, no.
Seen the child, the busy world of Richard Scarry, and it's like, it's like cutesy little, things, but like they're all interpretations of the same kind of visual art, if you will. And I mean, like, I
Right.
don't like Art Crumb either. I mean, like, I know people think his work is meaningful and this or is that, and it sits in museums and people like it, but I don't. You know what I mean? I just think it's ugly. But I
Right.
mean, I
No,
get it.
it's
People,
all personal
yeah,
opinion.
people like it, or
It's all personal opinion,
someone
and
looks at it and
that's
they
why we're
see
doing
something
this.
of themselves reflected in it, or maybe their life has that kind of similar value, or maybe they think of themselves as an unattractive person and they like that. That's what he, fetishizes as the unattractive qualities of people, or whatever your
Yeah,
reasons are
yeah,
for enjoying
yeah,
it. They've become
yeah,
famous, and they're, the Fabulous Freak Brothers. I mean, it's out
yeah,
there. It's all
yeah,
over the place, and I
yeah.
grew up with it all over the place. I mean, I
Right,
personally, if I'm going down that kind of thing, I'm much more aligned with something like heavy metal, metal airline, because like
right,
I would much rather see, you know, the Meta Barons, or freaking that kind of thing, that where it's outlandish and beautiful and is violent and fantastic. And or if I want something cartoony, it's more like Hergé or something like that, where like the Inkall, where characters are also very cartoony and very animated, but still have a certain level of like human, athletic, beauty to the form or whatever, even though it's not
right,
over
right, right,
simplistic.
right. And Chester Brown doesn't have that. He's not looking for the athletic. He's looking for the realistic. You're right. It's not realism, but it's definitely a realistic type of
It's
realistic.
yeah, it's
And
meant to infiltrate the realism.
especially when you look at his ink work and his line work, that's particularly in view. Like these panels here. There's a definite use. He's like using the cartooning art form to its maximum effect. Like he's not using a whole bunch of lines to tell the story when only a few will do. And so that's just an amazing trait, an amazing quality to do, like texture or emotion or something like that with only 3 or 4 lines compared to, this heavy inking and lots of texture, lots of hatching, cross hatching, stuff like that.
Yeah, people like that have always been, a bit of a wild card for me, that I don't always understand, because it seems like in my mind's eye, like you would be more interested in like film or television as a person like that. You'd be lean towards being like, oh, I want to make TV shows, or I want to make movies, or I want to, write plays where I, can tell these emotional stories about, people and their struggles or whatever, because that's essentially
Right,
what it seems like he's trying to tell a lot of the time. Or maybe he's trying to
right.
intermingle that with like, comedic effort or whatever. And I'm often like wonder where their artistic inspirations come from. You know what I mean? Like, because they're clearly not by any means like struggling over like drawing realistic figure, or like trying to learn real lighting, or learn real perspective, or things like that. Like they're not interested in any of that. They just like
Yeah, I
are trying
disagree.
to.
I
You think so?
disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree. I think he knows perspective, and I think he knows lighting. And I mean, you don't get this level of inking and uh, um, composition by you know lucking into it. You've got to know. It's like whenever you go to any art school or whatever, you have to learn the basics of doing stuff before you branch out and experiment.
I guess, man. I just don't see it on the page, Alex. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I know
I
it's
don't know
not for
what it
you,
is. Like,
and that is
I'm not
one
looking
hundred
at it in
percent.
person, so maybe it's
Yeah,
not. You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking at it through the lens of the thing here, and I mean, I've just never. I mean, where's the real perspective at, dude? Like, where's it at? Like, I don't see anything like that. Like, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm
no,
certainly
you
not
have
knocking this guy's art, because he's
right.
clearly, a profound artist that's made a big difference in a lot of people's lives. He's made a large body of work, from what I understand, and he
It
sells
is.
prolifically. Like, so clearly, I mean, this dude has made a mark for himself. And what's really amazing about that is that he's a guy who had a vision of what he wanted to do, and it's not easy, to like carve a niche like he's creating in the world. Any of those guys that create that humor stuff and go that route, because they're fighting the art just like we are. I mean, they're fighting to be identified for their art. They're fighting to make their art identifiable as their own stuff and not look like someone else's or whatever. And that's the big art battle that we're all fighting. And it's rad, I mean, to see someone like that who becomes prolific because of, not so much that he's like, oh, struggling over like getting the exact, Burn Hogarth, back muscles perfectly right or whatever, or like
Right, right.
drawing
And
every
that's
bone in the human hand, like
right,
that they're just like
right.
creating stories and, using their art to interpret ideas.
Right, right. And what he wants to do and show and the stories he wants to say and stuff are not really what it's like when we talked about the bear. That's just not something that you're interested in watching or whatever, but it is, I mean, it's a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic show. So it's all about what you're interested in as well as how they do it. Like it's not just it has to transcend for something to be quality. Um, it has to transcend what your interests are. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I mean, it's a hard, intangible thing to chase. And it's, impossible to know when you've really gotten there. And the only way to do it is just to sit down and do what you think is entertaining, what you
Right.
think will entertain you. I mean, that's how all artists are, I hope, at the beginning. Because like when you're sitting down to be like, oh, I'm gonna do this because I think this group of people will like this. And you're like, in the back of your mind, you're like, I hate this, but I'm going to do it because I know people will like it. Like, no one
Right.
wants to see that. You know what I mean? Like, make something that you think is amazing, make something that you love, make it so that you love it so much that you want to share it with other people, like, and I think that's
Yeah.
the best
Yep.
way to approach it. And then forget everything else. And if no one else likes
Although
it, you
we
still love it.
we've had this discussion before, and I don't think I've presented the case of doing stuff because other people like it in an appropriate way too. Because I think as comic book artists, both you and I and all of us, all of the other comic book artists, we're not just doing this for ourselves. We're also doing this for people to look at. We want
Yeah,
other
you
people
hope
to.
people will love it, but
Right. We
like you,
want other people to look at our comics. We want as many people to read our comics and to enjoy our comics as so, you can say, yes, you just want to do this for yourself. But if you're doing that, why aren't you just doing a painting of it? Why are you wanting to have it printed
well, no,
and stuff?
absolutely. But
So
see, first and
there's a
foremost,
lot more that goes into it.
I think you have to make work that impresses you. Like, what I mean? First and foremost, you have to be able to make
Right.
work where you sit down and you go like, this is good. I love this. Like I was able to do this. I'm super proud of this. I would like other people to look at this. I want to show this to other people. You know what I mean? Created a
Yeah.
piece of work for yourself where you feel that way, then I feel like it's very likely that other people are going to feel that way too. You know what I mean? You're going to find an audience that feels like you do. Even if there's a bunch of people that look at it and don't understand it, don't necessarily know what it is, you're going to find an audience because you put so much quality and so much work into the thing. And there's going to be another group of people that are like you, that want that same thing that you wanted to create. There inevitably will be. You just have to find them out there.
Right, right. But say you're making something, you really enjoy it, and you're making it, you really like it, and you have your few fans or whatever. But then somebody says, "Hey, maybe if you change this a little bit, more people will like it." Do you
Yeah, I don't
say,
know. Like I don't.
you know?
I mean, I might. It just depends on what it was. Like if it made sense to me, and all of a sudden I was like, "Oh man, he's right." Like if I did this, more people would like it. Maybe I would. But I
Right,
think it would
right,
have to
right.
be that I like that idea first. You know what I mean? Like I would,
Yeah, yeah,
because otherwise I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like if I looked at it, was like, I'm not into that. Then I'm not
right,
into
right.
it. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't do it. Mostly, all my work is about pleasing myself. You know what I mean? Like all my art, everything I do. I'm not, I'm never thinking like, oh, someone else is going to love this. Like, that's cool. And I hope other people do love it. But first,
right.
I like am trying to impress myself or whatever. I'm trying to do work where I look at it and I go, this is cool. I worked hard on this. Like, I think this has value. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah,
once I feel that way, then I'm comfortable with sharing it with other people. That's kind of how I
right,
approach it.
right. Well, I guess I mean I know that I watched a I can't remember the name of it. There's a video of all of these different comic book artists, Frank Miller and um, Bernie Wrightson and stuff, where they have like this. I think it's confidential. It's Comics Confidential or something like that. And they go to Jack Kirby, and one of the last things he says is he did all of these things that he drew and stuff, and he was very satisfied when it sold very well. And that kind of it makes sense for it when I first heard him say that, I was like, well, is that really a good measurement for being proud of your art? But it really, I mean, if you have a big fan base or a following or whatever, and they all enjoy it, then it it's selling well. I think that's a good measurement of how successful you are.
Yeah, and I mean, that's on a whole different level of someone like you or I. I mean, we
Right,
dream
right,
about
right.
our work being shared that much amongst people. It would be amazing. But I try to just be grateful for every little person who pays attention to my nonsense. You know what I mean? In all
Oh,
honesty,
definitely, definitely.
like I only printed out 30 copies of Six Lords of Sound. I'm proud to say that all 30 copies have been sold out. I'm proud to say that I've had multiple 5-star reviews of it, including one from you yourself. I mean, like, I'm very grateful and I'm
Yeah,
super
yep.
happy and I'm very proud of the small audience I've been able to, what I mean? It's like I could have never done this at all. And no one would ever have any idea of any of my ideas or any of my thoughts about comics or creating. But
Right,
I sat
right.
down and I took the time to make this thing. I got it to a point where, it took me almost 2 years and I got it to a point where I was like, I feel like this is worth sharing with people. And it's rad, even if it's just 30 people, it's rad to hear people open it up, read the book, and then come back and go, wow, that was a lot of fun. That was really good. Uh, Droid Vomit, and what was the other one? Like one of these guys said that
Yep.
holding this book was so exciting it literally vibrates in your hands. Hearing
Yeah, yeah.
somebody say that about your work is exciting. You know what I mean?
It is.
It
It
doesn't
is. It's
matter
great.
that it's 3 million people or that it's 3 people. Like I'm
Yeah.
excited that someone out there read my story and that they, said something like that about the work. It's very flattering. It excites me. It's more than enough. That's my
Yeah.
gauge of success. You know what I mean, dude? Like, that's
So do you feel
here's
like
a
you're
little guy like
successful?
me. I don't think I'm successful by any means, but
So
I
when
am
do
a
you think
small
you would
level creator who has
when do you
gotten
think you
his.
would when do you think you would feel successful?
Well, I don't know that I would ever feel successful, but I think the only way to say you are successful is to be like, I got this out in some sort of a professional level and I sold thousands of copies of something. You know what I mean? It's like anyone can sell a
See,
30 copies
that's the
or
thing.
100 copies or, whatever. But, if you make something, you sell 3,000 copies of it, that's a huge success for little guys like us. I doubt I will ever
Right,
feel it.
right. But I'm saying success is very it's like you said, it's very personal. And I've kind of gone round and round of what I've thought would be successful. Like is selling 1,000 comic books, are you then successful? If you sell 10,000, if you sell 20,000, if you sell 30,000, are you then successful? It's a personal everybody has their own personal interpretation of what that is going to be. And I mean, do you think Ed Piskor was successful
Yeah, I do. I mean, Ed got, he got his books
for
out,
his
hip
for
hop,
his for his
and then
art?
I even made, he's the founder of what is it? The where they condensed all those stories, the, X-Men, whatever it is. He
Yeah,
did that,
yeah. Grand
20 years
design.
of
Yeah.
X-Men. I mean, that's cool, dude. I think he was a success. Um, he's a success on the level he wanted to be. That guy never aspired to be a Marvel dude or a DC dude. He always wanted to be a Dan Klaus or what's the guy you're looking at right now?
Chester
Yeah, he
Brown.
always wanted to be like one of those guys. I mean, that was his thing, and he
Right.
definitely made
Right.
that. Like he definitely became just as infamous as any of those R. Crumb, any of those guys. I feel like for a creator in that kind of category, I didn't particularly think his stuff was
Uh,
for me, but
I
like,
don't know if you'd say as famous as R. Crumb.
well, I'm just dude,
R. Crumb is like
R.
R.
Crumb
Crumb
is
is he's maybe top 10 of all time
That
creators.
guy is sheer overrated nonsense, is what I would say. But you know, whatever.
Well, that's your opinion, and that's
Those
why we're doing
bug-eyed dudes with
these
wrinkles all over their
comparisons.
faces, girls with big legs, and the same hair and the same
Yeah.
smile. Like, it's ridiculous that people think that stuff
Well,
is as good as it is. But
well,
whatever.
it's all personal opinion, and it's just like you don't really appreciate the Chester Brown stuff, whereas you really love the Wendy Penny. And there's going to be a lot of people that a lot of people that disagree with you.
But
That's
certainly,
one of the
I'm not
great things
talking any
about
crap
comics.
on those guys. I want
You were
everyone to
saying,
understand that. I realize that those
yeah,
guys are
no,
artists that are struggling with their
yeah,
art. They worked hard. They are creators that created meaningful material that people love, and they have sold tens of thousands of copies of their work. And that is the real sign
yeah,
of
yeah,
someone. Who's not even say successful, will not even say made it, but we'll say is an artist who has managed to get his work into the public and have people appreciate it. And that's
yeah.
the
I
real
love
love
it.
of any artist. You know what I mean? Like, that's all you care about. Like,
Yeah,
I don't need riches or any of that crap. I just, want to know that I got some stuff out to the world and that the world looked at it and thought it was cool. Like, it'll be fun
yeah,
to think that when I pass away someday, I mean, I could die any day. Who knows? Anyone could die in a car accident or something terrible.
yeah, yeah,
None of us know how long we get. That even at this little point, I put 30 pieces of my brain out into the world, and in someone's comic book box somewhere there sits little bits and pieces of my brain in the Six Lords of Sound. And one day someone's grandkid might pull it out and look at it 20 years from now and go, who the hell is this, who did this? You know what I mean? Like, that's a fun idea.
yeah, yeah,
You leave something
definitely.
behind.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the big things. It's like the Turbo guys. Do videos with them, and they work every weekend or whatever, and they don't have very much time. They produce maybe a couple pages a month or something like that,
Yeah, turbo
and
pit
they're
fighters or whatever.
yeah, Turbo Pit Fighters, and they're kind of. I'm not gonna say nonchalant, but they're working at their own pace, and they're not pressing themselves to put out more than they feel like they can do. And that's a great thing. But like you said, you could drop dead at any minute. For me, I'm cranking out as much work as I possibly can because I feel like it's in me and I have to get it out before I die. And just like you said, you could die any minute. And then what do you do? It never
Yeah,
happened.
I feel you,
It never
Alex. You know what I
happened.
mean? Like, I feel you, dude. Keep
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
creating, right?
Yeah, 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 definitely. That's why I say it. You gotta keep on cranking out and not do the things that keep you from creating. Not doing the video games, not doing the whatever it is that you
Alex, I
do.
don't even play video games no more, man. I have a PlayStation
Yeah,
5. We have everything good, dude. My daughter and her husband, like, they have
yeah,
Harry Potter Legacy. We have Elden Rings. We have Baldur's Gates. We have every
yeah,
rad
yeah,
game you could think of that could call you away from your table for
yeah,
hours
yeah,
and hours and hours. And it's a
yeah.
fight constantly to stay
It
away
it
from it.
is. It is. And it's
Yeah.
not just video games, it's everything. It's all
Yeah.
kinds of things that get into your life that might keep you from creating your comics. And it's a battle for everybody because
Yeah.
you
You can't
say
let it
people
become an
say,
addiction, though, dude. You got to make time for your family and time for the other stuff
yeah,
too. So
yeah,
you
oh
got to
yeah,
find time for
100%,
everything.
100%, definitely. But it's those I'm not talking about, real responsibilities. I'm talking about superfluous things that you could do without and you could be doing your art instead.
Oh,
You
for
know what I'm
sure. I
saying?
mean, it's hard. You got to stay at the table, man. These things don't get
Yeah,
done unless we spend hours and hours creating them, and that's the only way to
yeah,
do it. Hey, is
yeah,
there any
yeah.
chance you got that copy of Entropy Alliance laying around? Maybe show it to people real fast.
Oh, yeah, it's upstairs. I'll show it next
All
time.
right.
I'll show it either this weekend or next Wednesday.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're getting
So,
close to our hour here.
yeah, yeah, definitely. All right. So you want to close it up?
So just let you guys know, this has been East Coast Alex and West Coast Joe. We're comic books from coast to coast. We're a couple of dudes that just like comics, and we make comics, and we create comics, and we like to hang out with other people who are like-minded. If you came and watched today's video, we really appreciate it. If you watch to the end, it helps us push this through the algorithm to other comic book like-minded people like you guys, and that helps us out a lot. If you'd like to throw Alex follow and a like, I know he'd appreciate that very much. Alex is a comic book
Definitely.
publisher as well. Hey, Dan. Oh, man, sorry you're wrapping up right here, dude. It's a bummer to see you at the end of the show, but it's good to see you still, Dan. We're comic book creators, and Alex is a comic book. So if you have a comic book you'd like to get published, definitely give Alex a ring on his Instagram or any of the many different ways you can get a hold of him. As I mentioned before, I'm the creator of Six Lords of Sound. And this little bad boy right here is the newsprint version that Alex created for me, because all of my regular copies are completely sold out. So I'm going to be printing some new ones up here shortly and hopefully get those back on the market again. But as of right now, I am completely sold out. So what's up with you now, Alex?
I make a comic book, a monthly comic book called Random Access, and I'm up to issue 30 is going out this month. And you can get that at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin. And it's only $3 a month for 12 pages of full size, full color comic book goodness. And there's usually a backup by either Chris Knox, usually Chris Knox, and or Paul Corjohn, or there's several other people that have contributed to the book. And then I can consolidate them into their own books. And you can get all of this stuff at alexanderturbin.com, or you can message me at alexturbin0441 at yahoo.com or alexturbin0441 at Instagram.
Really great looking stuff there
Yeah.
too, man. The color stuff's looking really good lately.
Thank you. Thank you. Next month, or this month rather, is all in watercolor. So we'll see how that all comes out.
Yeah, those have been looking real nice.
Yeah, yeah. And after this, I'm going to create the poll, and I'm always interested to see you guys voting. I want to see as many people that watch the video as I can see. Go and vote, because I love seeing.
Everybody come out and vote for sure, because
Yeah.
two great artists, really great, beautiful stuff. Put some Wendy Pini up there at the end here if you guys look at. And once again, we were looking at Cester Brown and Wendy Pini. We really appreciate you guys' time. And definitely, we really appreciate it when you take the time to go and vote and let us know what you think about this stuff.
Yep. And so that's it. And the final word is, do you want to say it?
Well, it's normally Alex's line, but I'll deliver it this time. We love you guys out there. We want you guys all to just keep doing what you do. And the most important thing that you guys do is you keep on creating.
See you later.